welcome back. I asked a week ago on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask me. The last Q&A that Tim and I did was 8 months ago now, so I know we've got a lot more subscribers and followers these days, and so I thought a Q&A would be a good way for you guys to get to know me a little bit better and ask me any questions that you may have. So there were a lot of questions that came through. I might have to split this Q&A into two. I'll see how I go with time. So there were quite a few questions that were asked more than once, so I've written down all of the questions so we're not doubling up, and I haven't made note of who asked them, I'm sorry, but I have made sure that everyone's question is written down, and I will be sure to answer it at some point. So the first question is, how did you and Tim meet? Tim and I met at work. We worked at the same cafe. I was 19 when we met. We were quite close friends for a while, and then the relationship grew from there. How old are you and your husband? I turned 29 this year, and Tim is 36. How did Tim propose? It was a very relaxed proposal. We were at home, it was on the weekend. The date was the 19th of December 2010, so a few days before Christmas. It was nothing extravagant, but it was perfect. We were just in bed eating breakfast, and he pulled out a ring, said some lovely things, and proposed. It was very simple but special. I was 22 when he proposed. We were then engaged for 2.5 years before we got married, so we had a long time to plan the wedding. We were, at the time he proposed, we were saving to build a house, and we wanted to, get that done before planning the wedding. So there was no rush for us. We did a lot of the wedding on our own, planned a lot of things, made a lot of things. We wanted to keep it as low budget as possible. So having that extra time definitely gave us that opportunity. How do you and your husband handle the stress as a couple? I've heard horror stories. I've also heard horror stories. IVF is a very challenging thing to go through. Before you even go up the ladder of fertility treatments, it can be quite challenging, but I think the key for us and what's gotten us through is communication. Tim, I'm lucky to have a husband who is sensitive and who is a good communicator, because I know there are a lot of men who don't necessarily or aren't that way inclined. So he's willing to talk about his feelings and listen to me talk about mine, and we've just been very supportive of one another throughout this journey, and even the years before we tried for a baby. We've had some, at the beginning of our relationship, Tim was in hospital for a little bit, so we've definitely had times in our life where things haven't been easy. As I said very early on in our relationship, I think with these kind of struggles, it either tears a couple apart or brings a couple closer together, and I think for us, luckily, it's brought us closer together, hands down. And I think also making time doing things that you enjoy to take your mind off trying to conceive and the focus away from not having a baby. I think that's very important, to still enjoy your time as a couple and remember that these years, just the two of you, aren't going to last forever, because your little baby is going to come. You just got to keep believing that it will happen and try to enjoy this time you have together as a couple, because it won't be forever. What advice would you give someone that has recently had a miscarriage with coping and moving forward, or just any tips in general? Having experienced 6 miscarriages, I would say to someone who's just experienced a loss to be kind to yourself, to not blame yourself. I think self-blame can be such an easy thing to do, and one of the first things you wonder is, what did I do is there anything I could have done to have caused this miscarriage? it's just unfortunately one of those things, and it is quite common. No, you're not alone. I think the most important thing to do is to give yourself time to grieve your loss, to feel what you're feeling. Talking about it heals, and for me, I found talking about it with friends and family really helped the healing process. Obviously, one of the reasons why I document my journey is I feel like it's very therapeutic to talk through your feelings and emotions, and the other reason why I share my journey is to hopefully help others and make people realize that they're not alone. Miscarriage is a very taboo subject. It shouldn't be. It's so common, but it's so isolating at the same time. It's bizarre, and I just don't, it doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't need to be that way. When you find other women who have experienced loss and have gone on to have healthy children, it does give you hope. And I think in that time of grief and despair, you need that hope. Take as much time as you need. I'm not sure if I said that already, I think I did, but there's no rush. Everybody grieves differently and everybody takes different amount of time. Just do what you have to do for you and your healing process. In regards to moving forward, whenever I've had my miscarriages, I've just wanted so badly to be pregnant again. It's such a dark time going through a miscarriage, and it's hard for people who haven't experienced it to understand, and that can make it even more hard when you're talking about your miscarriage to someone who just doesn't get it and they say something that upsets you. Obviously it's not always intentional, but that can make it even harder. I guess my number one tip is to be kind to yourself and know you'll get through it. Moving forward, planning another pregnancy isn't forgetting about the baby that you've lost. Next question is, what motivates you and inspires you to stay strong and positive? Honestly, hearing from a lot of you, hearing your positive stories and knowing that I'm not alone. There's so many women and couples going through similar struggles. There's also a lot of couples who seem to have babies so easily, couples who perhaps shouldn't, and that's hard to deal with, that feeling of why not us. Sometimes it just doesn't feel fair, and you know, it's probably not fair, but it is what it is. Staying hopeful and positive that it will happen for us. It's not easy, and there are days that are harder than others. There are some days where you just feel sad, and you know, those sad feelings are often triggered by pregnancy announcements or I don't know, walking past baby clothes in the shops or seeing pregnant bumps around. Really, it's in your face constantly. You feel like sometimes you're surrounded by people who have what you so badly want for you and your husband or partner. But I think I just try to remind myself that with each day that goes by, we are one step closer, and this is our journey. Our baby is coming. We have no control over the situation. I think I learned a couple of years into this trying to conceive journey that it's so important to enjoy these days and not wish away your days for better ones ahead. I love that saying. I think it's so true, because I was doing that a lot. I was just wanting time to go quickly so that we'd get to our baby quicker, but that's not a way to live. Just trying to fill your days with positivity is important. I can't even remember what the question was. What's one positive thing that you've experienced through your fertility journey? The one positive thing that comes to mind is the people I've come to meet. online, and it's been amazing to get to know so many inspirational and wonderful people, and I would never have met any of those people if we hadn't gone through this journey, and if I hadn't have started this channel or shared our journey publicly. I guess that's a blessing. I mean, when I think of my fertility journey, I don't really think of many positives. It's been heartbreak after heartbreak, and it hasn't really, I don't know, that's a tricky one. I would say the number one thing is the relationships I've come to make, and the people I've come to meet. Your blanket? Blanket? Yeah. Gosh, he's funny. He loves this blanket. We're constantly washing it, but he suckles on it and kneads and purrs. Anyway, so that's Mr. Coops. How did we meet him? What's the story? So Cooper came into our lives in the summer, so February 2012. Tim was at work, and they realised at work that there was a mother with her, I think it was 5 kittens stuck in the roof. And so they lured them all out with food, and Cooper was one of the kittens. Obviously they were stray, all of them were adopted out, and we adopted our beautiful little Cooper. He has been a joy since day one. Such a blessing. He's always made us laugh. He has the funniest personality. He was about 5 weeks old when we adopted him, and he was really little. We were very scared of how Mittens, who was our first fur baby, we lost her a few months ago in February, 2nd of Feb. She had cancer. It was a very sudden diagnosis. But when we brought Cooper home for the first time, we were terrified of how Mittens would react, and she was not a fan of him for a while, but of course, kitten-like, he was all, play with me, and they ended up being best of friends. But yes, he is such a joy. How do you think Cooper will react to having a baby brother or sister? Honestly, I have no idea. He is terrified of kids. Whenever kids come into the house, he runs to the panic room, which is our walk-in robe, our wardrobe in the ensuite. He is terrified of them. He will tremble, and he just does not like children. So I don't know how he is going to react. It will be interesting, that's for sure. What is your favourite thing about your cat, Cooper? There's so many things. I can't think of just one. He gets so excited when I get home. I can hear him meowing, meowing, meowing behind the door as I'm opening the front door. Hi, darling. Hi, my sweetie pie. Hello. Hi. Been a good boy? Yeah. Yeah. Hi, my sweetie boy. Yeah. Oh, honey. He just follows me everywhere. He is so cuddly and affectionate. When he gets really excited, he does these wall rides where he just jumps off the wall and races up and down the house, and he talks to me. I'll say something to him and he'll meow back. When Tim gets home, he races to the bath and jumps in the bath and waits for Tim to turn on the water. And he does the same with me, but with the sink in the ensuite. He'll jump up on the sink and just wait for me to turn the tap on. He's a funny little thing. One of you said, I love your cat. I was wondering if you and Tim are considering a new kitty to keep Cooper company. We have been thinking about it. Tim was at the pet store the other day picking up kitty litter and food, and they had some kittens and cats up for adoption in the store, rescued kittens and cats. One of them had 3 legs and Tim fell in love with it, as well as all the others. We'd love to save as many animals as possible. It would be amazing to have a house full of rescued animals, but I don't know. We have to think about Cooper. We want him to have company when we're at work. We want him to have a little furry companion. It's just a matter of finding the right time, and I think it's important for one of us to have time off work when we do introduce a new member to the family, a furry member, to make sure that they're interacting well and just keeping an eye on them for the beginning especially. So I think when the time's right, we would love to get another fur baby to keep Cooper company. But yeah, I don't think it'll be anytime soon. Hopefully this year. We'll have to wait and see. If your embryos come back normal, will you be transferring 1, 2 or more embryos? So if you haven't seen my recent video on our PGS results for the embryos, you won't know that we got the call the other day and we have 1 healthy embryo, which we're absolutely thrilled and relieved about. We do have another embryo that wasn't tested, so we don't know whether it's chromosomally normal or not. Regardless, we'll still be transferring the 1 embryo at a time, and we'll be transferring obviously the PGS tested embryo that we know is healthy. We've been recommended to only transfer 1 embryo at a time. Yeah, we're just doing what we've been recommended by the fertility specialist, transfer 1 at a time. What can I expect with a frozen embryo transfer? Honestly, I don't really know. Frozen embryo transfers are done so differently depending on the person. I got close to having a frozen embryo transfer, but the embryo didn't survive the thawing process back in December last year. So I mean, my frozen embryo transfer was off a natural cycle, so I wasn't doing anything really. They were just going to transfer the embryo at time of ovulation, or 6 days, because it was a 6-day embryo, 6 days after ovulation. But I do know that some people need more medication leading up to that transfer than others, so it really depends. I'm really curious on your thoughts about false positive embryo testing. Hopefully it won't happen to you, but if the results are positive for chromosomal abnormalities, will you still transfer knowing that the embryo still might be perfectly healthy? This question gave me anxiety, I'm not gonna lie. Look, I think these days the PGS testing results are very accurate. The technology that they use is very advanced. It's very unlikely to have a false reading. We won't be transferring an embryo that has had an abnormal reading. I don't think there would have been any point in doing PGS testing if we were still going to be transferring abnormal embryos. At this point, I've gone through 6 miscarriages, and I'm obviously wanting to do everything I can to avoid another. And you know, when you've had D&C after D&C, you do start to worry about scar tissue, and obviously D&C after D&C isn't a good thing. So that's one of the reasons why we did PGS testing. We just want to avoid a miscarriage, an inevitable miscarriage. The embryo that was found to be abnormal was missing part of chromosome 8, so it wouldn't have made a viable pregnancy. I'm trusting that the results are accurate and not overthinking it. When you get the results for the PGS testing, will you be finding out the gender of the embryos? Do you want to know? Would they tell you? I meant to talk about this in my PGS results video. The nurse I spoke to does know the gender of our embryo. She isn't able to tell us due to gender selection laws in Victoria. There's not much to select. We only have one embryo and we don't have any other children. We're not after a particular gender, but that's the law and they have to keep it, you know, the same rules for everybody, obviously. So they can tell us after we've transferred the embryo. We'll find out. I think we will find out. It was weird knowing that she knows the gender of our potential future baby. But yeah, we don't know. We will find out at some stage, and just hoping that this is our little rainbow. I have rambled for such a long time, and I think this video is going to be ridiculously long, so I might have to cut the Q&A short there, but I will be sure to answer the remaining questions in another video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will be sure to film the second part of this video really soon. Take care of yourselves. Love and baby dust to you all. Bye guys.
Just as the sunrise starts to show, warming up the motorway, you know you felt this way before, but can't recall the time and day. Don't know if life is a small part